Listeners want podcast. Good podcast.
Hi, and welcome to that Groovy Scoobcast, your go-to audio hub for all things Scooby-Doo.
This is not good podcast. Ah! I can already feel that deeper voice I was doing, like straining my throat.
Regret.
Right. Hey guys, welcome back to that Groovy Scoobcast. We're excited to talk today about the new Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show again.
Yeah.
You don't sound convincing at all.
No.
Like last week, again, we have yet to find my Scooby-Doo trivia game. So I will just say it right now. The Mystery Machine match is again suspended. We will pick up where we left off next week. We're finally getting the apartment unpacked, so
we're going to dig through everything we can.
Fingers crossed we will find the game.
And if we don't find the game, we'll figure out something to continue the Mystery Machine match.
It's going to happen. So today we're going to be talking about 2 episodes, both 10 minutes long, from the new Scooby and Scrappy-Doo show. The first one is titled Scooby the Barbarian, and the second is No Sharking Zone. So, curious, which one did you like better than the other?
I liked No Sharking Zone.
More?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, honestly, I kind of hate-watched both of them.
Oh.
I would... Scooby the Barbarian, I hated, but I'd watch again to hate-watch it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I actually gave both of them the same score. So we'll be talking about, our scores at the very end of the review. But because we're not doing the Mystery Machine match today, we might as well just dive right in. So the first episode we're going to be doing is Scooby the Barbarian. Today's premise is coming from Scoobypedia. The kids are in Norway to find out what happened to Professor Busby, the archaeologist, who was studying the old Viking ruins. It seems that some Vikings have come back and kidnapped him, but before too long, Daphne and Scrappy are kidnapped too, and Shaggy and Scooby have to save them.
What they fail to tell you in this premise is specifically what kind of Vikings come to take them away.
What do you mean?
They are vampire-Viking-Nazi pirates.
All of this is true.
Yeah.
We will elaborate. But... I'm just baffled at this episode personally. I remember watching it the first time and I was just dumbfounded. Thankfully we weren't taking notes the first time. We had to do the notes the second time because the first time I was just hunched over, what the fuck am I watching?
We were both so speechless. And even as I was taking notes the second time we watched it, I couldn't take notes because I was just I kept wanting to write down what.
Did we watch this we watched this 4 times, I think.
I think so. And it sucks because we really haven't even been watching the 7-minute episodes as much as we watched this one.
It was just off the wall. The episode begins with a tour group. They're in Norway, and they're going through, these Viking ruins, and they're being guided by Mr. Busby, Professor Busby.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Busby. And, he's talking about, ancient Norwegian Viking history and stuff like that. I'm kind of ignorant on that kind of stuff, so I don't really know a lot about the topic. But I'm just overall thinking that this probably is not true.
I mean, honestly, I don't have much faith in the Scooby-Doo franchise anymore when it comes to, being correct on their history.
Being appropriate in their representation of culture or whatever.
So, everything that they say or do, I definitely take, with a grain of salt.
We definitely learned that from Scooby-Doo and the Monster of Mexico, I think.
Yeah. And so, anything that, I think, oh, okay, they're a big company. They probably did their research. No. So whatever they're saying, I'm probably unlikely, but sure. I just saw a note that I wrote.
Okay.
And it says, I'd rather be watching the dynamic duo.
Oh my God. You hated that episode. We frequently bash on that episode. Are you saying that you would much rather be watching that?
I guess so. I don't remember writing it, but it's definitely my handwriting.
So the woman that's actually like guiding the tour group.
Yeah.
I noticed that, she's an African-American woman. And in a few scenes, her skin color was changing. Like, she became a white woman momentarily. Yeah. Well, her face did. But her hands and her legs that we could see were still, darker skin tone.
Like, my thought was maybe they lost the pencil to color in her face, and then in the next scene they found it.
That's your theory?
That was my theory.
All right.
That's all I could come up with. My whole thing is, it's a tourist attraction for Viking bones, right? Or is it just like Viking territory?
No, it's Viking ruins.
Okay. But like, what is that?
I couldn't tell you. Like I said, I'm so ignorant on anything Viking because I just don't care about the topic.
It's funny because like I used to be really into that stuff and I don't remember a single fact about Vikings. I usually have fun facts about everything.
So this one random guy, we don't know who he is yet. We will find out soon. But he asks the professor about whether it's true that these ruins are haunted. And something that I noted, and I had to like rewind it just to make sure I heard him right. He asked, is it true that these ruins are haunted?
Yeah, he said that.
He definitely said haunted.
What I loved about that scene is that everyone in the background was like, oh, and then went right back to doing what they were doing.
There was that guy with the camera who is just panic taking pictures of things.
Honestly, if you guys watch this episode, please go back, rewatch it, whatever. Specifically, just like the opening scene, just follow that camera guy wherever he is because he is my hero.
He's constantly on the move.
Like, he is going. And then, like, when he's taking pictures of the Viking in the outfit that's, like, in the glass thing.
They have, like, a dummy, I think.
Yeah, it's, like, a dummy Viking thing. His, like, camera, he's, like, moving, like, closer and further and closer and further. And I was like, you can just move the lens. Like,
calm down and stand still for a second.
Like, he was always on the go. And so then when the guy was like, is it haunted? And he was like, oh, and then went right back to taking pictures. And I was like, oh.
But that wasn't just him either. Like, everyone kind of stopped and panicked for a half second and then just went on like he never said it.
Yep.
What I also like about this is that guy that asks, if the place is haunted, he disappears.
You never see him again?
He's just gone. Oh, no, you see him again. It's not explained that he left. But then Professor Busby says that he has to go back to his research, so he leaves.
Well,
and then that's when the live Viking appears and he attacks. We don't know exactly what he does because we never see the group again. I want to imagine that they were either taken prisoner or murdered.
I mean, I'm sure they just got scared off the island.
I think they were murdered.
All right. Add to the ruins.
We now cut to see Daphne, Shaggy, Scrappy, and Scooby. They're in the Mystery Machine. They're on their way to this area because they heard about Professor Busby going missing.
And I don't know if you noticed, but the entire time they're driving, the back of the van was open.
Yeah, I did. I wrote that down. Were they really that lazy?
You couldn't close the door.
I feel like that would take more effort than actually just coloring the wall in gray. Like, because it wasn't even like the background is just there and it's not moving. Like, no, it was moving, like looking out a window as if as if the back doors of the Mystery Machine were open.
Yeah. It
was so lazy.
It was the weirdest thing.
Another thing I noted about this scene is that Daphne and Shaggy are wearing seatbelts.
You see it every once in a while.
I don't really think so. This is the only time that I've actually like registered in my head. It's like, oh, they're wearing seatbelts.
I feel like I've seen it before because I remember like as a kid, I feel like I saw it a lot. And then, I don't know, because I remember like rewatching a few episodes and I was like, oh, they're not wearing seatbelts.
I don't feel like I've ever seen them wear seatbelts in the Mystery Machine before.
I remember like the crossover ones, not the ones over just like the middle seat belts, but I remember like side belts.
Yeah, because they had the ones that only go over your lap, I feel like you're in an airplane.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just really weird.
It was.
It was just a strange thing that I registered because, like I said, I don't see that ever personally.
And it was a weird like addition. Like it wasn't needed. It's not like
no one's wondering where the seatbelts are. They just kind of assume that you're lazy, so you're not going to draw it because you're lazy.
They took the extra effort instead of closing the doors to
the
just draw the seatbelts.
They just drew the seatbelts.
We'll keep at least
it's their budget. They were under. They were over budget. They could only afford to draw the seatbelts.
They were like, you have to do seatbelts or the back door. And they were like, these seatbelts are important.
No, they couldn't afford the back door. So they're like, so what can we afford? Well, you can afford seatbelts.
Me building a car.
So in the scene where we see the missing wall of the Mystery Machine, Scooby and Scrappy are looking through this book, and Scooby is just turned on by all these bones that he's looking at. It's like a archaeology book, and I think that maybe archaeology is his passion.
I think he's just a dog and he loves bones.
I like to think Scooby is an intellectual. No, that's not true, because Yabba's smarter than him.
I was gonna be like,
And based on our discussion with Scott for the Scooby-Doo 2 movie, we know that he can be a lot smarter.
Yeah.
So they arrive at Professor Busby's office, and when everyone's getting out of the Mystery Machine, I noted that Shaggy didn't really, bend and, get out of the Mystery Machine like a normal person. He literally walked, like
as if he had already been walking.
I can't really explain how it happened. It just, he was standing, getting out of the van.
Yeah, it's almost as if he had already been walking and just walked through the Mystery Machine.
It's a really quick thing. I had to rewatch it, but it's just a little thing I know that was kind of caught my eye. I always catch those little animation things. When they're in the office, they can tell that it's kind of been ransacked, I think. Is that what they said? Or it was deserted or something. No one was there.
Yeah.
And then Scrappy appears out of nowhere wearing a little Viking costume, which I thought was kind of cute.
It was cute, but weird. Where did he get it and why did he just feel the need to put it on?
Right. They were about to go back to town. Daphne is like, okay, well, maybe we can find out some more information about the professor if we go into town. As they're walking out, that's when the guy who said daunted, just barges in.
Angrily.
And he's like, what are you guys doing here? Trespassing. It turns out he's Professor Busby's lab assistant.
Supposedly.
He doesn't say his name or anything. And he was really suspicious.
He was. And he was an ass.
Because he asked Daphne and the gang, what are you doing here? You're trespassing. And Daphne was like, we should ask you the same question. Which, are you sure you should be asking that question, Daphne? But anyway. And then he was just kind of thinking about it. He has to come up with an excuse. Well, which he kind of was, but also, isn't he... No, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, that may have actually been an excuse.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he was really the lab assistant. Because... Oh
my god, my entire point has been blown apart.
Well, because Daphne is who are you? And he's like, well, who are you? Or, whatever. And my thing is, Daphne, you're absolutely a nobody. It's not like you were hired to come and figure out what happened. You as a nice person were like, hey, we're a detective group or whatever we do. Hey, we solve mysteries. Let's go do that. And you're not anyone in this situation. You can't just ask somebody who are you? What are you doing here? Bitch, who are you?
I'm thinking about it from the perspective of that this lab assistant guy was asking Professor Busby questions in the tour group, which kind of indicates then that he doesn't know Professor Busby.
No, I didn't think that. I never thought that he was.
I did.
Oh.
Okay, now I just feel stupid.
My bad. Sorry.
It's okay. I make myself feel stupid anyway. So he comes up with the excuse then that he is Professor Busby's lab assistant. And he tells them that, they're all trespassing, that they need to leave. I noticed that the music got really dramatic, as if he were threatening. It's he's just a guy.
And what he said wasn't super threatening, but with the music, I took it as a threat.
Yeah, I felt attacked.
As a viewer.
Yes. But they were just well, we were leaving anyway. Daphne has an attitude bitch.
I mean, I would too. Motherfucker, don't come in here yelling at me.
So they do go into town now. And they're looking around, and Scrappy, is kind of posing the idea that maybe Vikings attacked and, took Mr. Busby. And Daphne just kind of, knocks it off that's just superstition. I don't think that's true. Suddenly, they hear this yelling. It turns over and we see a big boulder, just a random boulder, and we see something swinging behind it. And the boulder gets smashed by this like club that a Viking is holding. This Viking is just out of control. The whole scene's out of control, to be honest.
It's my favorite scene.
He yells and he says, Olaf wants food! Good food! My throat is like stressed trying to do that again. But he picks up a pumpkin from this like cart of pumpkins.
Smashes it.
And like just devours. And it's just like, this is not good food. And just goes into a rage fit. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Like, my thing with it, there's really nobody else that we've seen in the town besides Daphne, Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy. Who was he talking to?
Himself.
He was just so angry. He was like, me when I get hangry.
Well, I think it's also funny to think that, you know, he's so angry and chaotic. This is supposed to be Mr. Busby. Professor Busby does turn out to be the villain. Olaf, yeah, he turns out to be Olaf the Terrible.
I mean, because there's like a whole gang.
And now he's just like split personality, crazy psycho Viking, destroying property, devouring pumpkins. Like, it was just psycho. He goes to terrorize I hate to call them the kids like the premise does, because they're not fucking kids.
They're grown-ass adults.
But he goes and attacks everybody. And Scooby and Shaggy, they run over to this horse statue. They climb on top of it as if they're going to, like, ride away. For one, can't you tell it's a statue?
But it does come to life.
Yes, it comes to life in a fit rage and, like... kicks them off of his back. And then just goes right back to whatever it was doing.
Being a statue.
Like,
the statue was like, I was happy where I was, thanks.
That horse statue is my spirit animal. I also noted that this is the very first time that I've really ever seen Scrappy scared.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that too.
Because he's like punching and kicking, trying to attack Olaf on his leg. Because the Viking is huge. He's a really big guy, which I don't really think equates to being Mr. Busby. But Scrappy gets picked up by him, and Olaf just screams at him.
In his face.
And Scrappy's just like he cowers. Scrappy was scared.
I felt really bad. Like, okay, do you remember when we first started this and I hated Scrappy?
Yeah.
I don't want to say I'm warming up to him because he's still not my favorite person on the planet, but like, I feel bad for him a lot.
That Groovy Scoobcast is becoming tolerant of Scrappy.
Up until we see the first Scooby-Doo movie, and then I'll go right back to hating him. But, I mean, like, I just felt really bad. And my thought with it was, because whenever he goes to fight somebody, Scooby always pulls him back before anything can happen. And so he's probably either, like, so used to it, or he's never gotten to the point of, like, what would happen if somebody 9 times the size of me, picks me up. And so when he does get picked up and screamed at, he was like, oh, crap, like,
where's my uncle?
Yeah, like,
I'm in
I
danger.
am really small. Because Scooby had just gotten kicked off the
horse. I don't know where he was at this moment. But
unconscious, like...
I would be. But then the Viking proceeds to grab Daphne and kidnaps them.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
So we see Olaf take Daphne and Scrappy back to their ruins, hideout, Viking lair. And this is the most horrifying thing that I've ever seen in anything Scooby-Doo.
Wait, before you say it, because I think it's just so... I can't... Why?
I was speechless. So, basically, several Vikings do a salute, like, they do the salute like a Nazi. They do the one arm in the air, and they all say in unison, Heil Olaf the Terrible. I was speechless.
I can't say anything. Like, I was so incredibly disrespected by it, but, like, it's not even...
Can you imagine the outrage if this episode came out nowadays and that same thing happened?
It'd definitely get talked about.
Given, the political climate and everything that's happening in our country, like, in Pittsburgh and stuff like that, like, that would be all over the news. I feel like.
Oh, 100%.
Like, Scooby-Doo episode portrays Nazi-like villains.
Yeah. And especially since nowadays we do have modern day Nazis again. I don't want to say again because I feel like they never went away. But...
I think that was my least favorite thing I've ever seen in a Scooby-Doo. Like, I can very comfortably say this was my least favorite Scooby-Doo anything ever.
Yes.
I think.
And mainly just because of that scene. Like, it wasn't a great episode to begin with, but specifically, like, after that scene happened, it lost any
Spoiler alert, guys. We fucking hated this episode.
Like, after that scene, it lost any pointage that it was going to get.
If we could give it 0 Scooby snacks, I would.
Yeah.
But
like, I want to go back and bump up all of my other points just to make this one, like, the only bad one.
But in this scene, something I noted during the 4th watching that I didn't see in the other watchings were that the Vikings have fangs.
Yeah.
Like vampires. So earlier when we said that they're vampire Nazi pirate Vikings, it's because they are Nazis. They're vampires. And in the episode, they call themselves like Viking pirates.
Yeah.
So if that's what you want to be for Halloween minus the Nazism, go for it.
I request not the Nazism.
Yes. They bring Daphne and Scrappy into the ruins and put them in the dungeon. Shaggy and Scooby followed Olaf and is, trying to devise a plan to save them. I don't exactly remember how they got the Viking guards, like, attention, but I do remember basically 2 Vikings chased them up a tree.
Yeah, and then they, like, slingshot it off of it or something.
And they, like, when they were slingshot off the tree, the 2 Vikings' clothes were left with Shaggy and Scooby. So they're flying through the air in their underwear. They have matching underwear, by the way.
It was cute.
I think that's adorable. They land in this little pond and they look at each other like, what
just happened?
Shaggy and Scooby take their outfits and dress up to pretend to be Vikings. They go up to, like, the main doors of the ruins and basically ask to join the Vikings.
No, my thing is, there's so many of them. Do you think that they could have just walked in and been like, oh, hey, George?
Just pretended to be them?
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, in one scene, one of the Vikings looked like an ape.
Yeah.
Like, he looked like a gorilla, kind of.
He did.
I don't think that they're very smart.
No.
So I think they could have gotten away with it. But in order to join the Vikings, they have to pass the test.
And I'll give you one guess on what that test is. You're wrong. It was tug of war.
We'll return to the tug of war scene in just a second. But meanwhile, we see Daphne and Scrappy in the dungeon. They're behind bars. They're trying to figure out a way to get out. And that's when the lab assistant walks in that we saw earlier. And they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, what exactly did he say? He basically said something about, like, he was going to find Professor Busby or something.
Something.
And he said it really suspiciously, as if, he's going to do something to harm him.
Because I think they asked I think they specifically said, like, what have you done with Professor Busby? And he was like, nothing yet. That's
what it was. That's exactly what it was. And he's trying so hard to look like a villain.
He's
the most red herring I've ever seen.
Yes. He was more red herring than red herring.
And after he leaves, I like that he leaves, even though he's a good guy undercover. Like, he leaves Daphne and Scrappy in the dungeon.
Like, all right, have a good day, bye.
And Daphne and Scrappy have to try and reach for this key that's on the wall in order to open the cell door. I like that Daphne has Scrappy, like, on her shoulders trying to reach the keys. But it's, like, literally centimeters from Scrappy's paw. Daphne could have reached those keys.
Oh, 100%. Her arms are so much longer than his.
No wonder Scrappy hates her. Back to the tug of war. So Shaggy and Scooby, alone on their side, have to face up to, like, 5 Vikings, I think it was.
It was like 4 or 5, yeah.
So really unfair.
Well, and plus, like, you see how skinny they are compared to these really buff guys, and I'm like, you could have them, like, up against one guy and he'd probably still win.
Right. Before it transitions, it does look like Shaggy and Scooby are giving them a good fight, though.
Yeah, I was
which kind of shocked me.
Like, because at one point, like, it wasn't like the Vikings pulled once and they died. Like, it was... There was, like, a really big hole.
Is that what it was? There was a pit?
Yeah, I don't know how deep it was.
I thought they just pulled them and they died.
Like, they were pulling back. It was a decent fight for a minute.
Maybe that's how they murdered all the other people. Like, they captured them and then made them do tug of war, and they died. They, like, fell in the
They're
hole.
all at the bottom of the pit. Like, one has a broken leg, and they're all just like, help me!
No, I like the idea that they're all dead, so it's just a pit of corpses that have lost the tug of war challenge.
I was thinking they leave them down there to starve.
This is all so morbid.
They're Nazis.
We now see Daphne and Scrappy. They've managed to get the key and escape. They're now looking around the hideout to, try and get some clues to get to the bottom of this investigation. They find this room that just has a bunch of barrels of diesel fuel. They're wondering, like, what do Vikings need with diesel fuel?
And
that
honestly,
makes no sense.
It confused me until we looked it up later.
Because it's not mentioned again, but the plot that is going on here is the lab assistant that we've been seeing throughout the episode. He's from the Navy. He's investigating the theft of one of their submarines, which, how the hell did they steal a submarine from the fucking U.S. Navy?
Honestly, I feel like it'd be possible.
Oh, okay, so you go try it, Shannon.
I mean, I'm not going to try it, but I'm saying, like, I don't know. Like, it's a submarine. Like, you just take it underwater. Like, I don't fucking know.
But he's investigating the theft of the submarine, which Olaf stole. The diesel fuel is actually for the submarine, which I didn't know that's actually the fuel that submarines typically use.
And, like, it took us looking it up after the episode to figure out why diesel fuel was even in.
Because they don't mention the fuel either.
No.
Again, it's just they found a room full of diesel fuel, so okay.
Fun fact.
So after they find the diesel fuel, they start wandering the hideout a little bit more, and they find this, like, evil headquarters, like, operations room. Like, it looks like a scene out of, I don't know, the League of Doom or something.
It was a really cool room, though.
They've got, like, this horseshoe table arrangement. They've got a big map of the world on the wall.
Which
like...
Daphne... fucking Daphne goes, oh, look! It's a map of the Atlantic Ocean.
No, she asked, why would Vikings need a map of the Atlantic Ocean?
They don't, Daphne. They made a map of the whole fucking world.
And this is when they run into Professor Busby. And they're like, are you all right? He says, okay. Yeah, he's okay. And they're just going to continue trying to figure out a way out. But they separate. So he doesn't stay with them.
Which was dumb to me.
That, Daphne and Scrappy don't find that a little bit suspect?
Like, you don't separate from the person that you came looking for. When you find them, you're like, I'm not letting you out of my sight. I'm not going to lose you again.
Again. I'm also wondering why they didn't ask him, like, where he was being held.
Yeah, like,
hey, why wasn't he in the dungeon, too?
Like, I was just in the dungeon. Where were you?
These are shitty investigators. After they separate, we also see Scooby and Shaggy. I think they lost the tug of war.
Yeah.
I don't really understand how they got to where they were, but I know that Daphne and Scrappy were, like, walking up these stairs that they were going to try and escape the ruins from. I noted that Daphne was walking really fast, and Scrappy was really struggling to catch up.
He just kept looking at her like, please slow down, please slow down, please slow down.
He looked so upset, like, oh my god, Daphne. Again, reasons he hates her. But then Shaggy and Scooby come barreling down the stairs and run into them, and they all, like, hit this wall at the bottom of the stairs. You noted that Daphne's legs are just spread eagle.
Well, and Shaggy landed in between her legs, and I was like, oh, so that happened.
I like that Daphne asked them what they're doing here, and Shaggy says, we're here to rescue you, and she's like, oh, thank you, I think.
Yeah.
What is that supposed to mean?
Because you know what? That's why they don't fucking rescue you, Daphne. That's why when they thought that you were in danger for that fucking vampire, that they were like, would you do the same for us? Because obviously you wouldn't, and you're a fucking asshole. Like, God.
The more we see their adventures, I'm beginning to understand.
Like, I get why people don't like Daphne. I get why people are sympathetic towards Scrappy. I don't agree with it all the time.
People aren't sympathetic towards Scrappy.
People like Scrappy.
I understand. I don't know. It's just funny to me how we're just beginning to understand the questioning of just like, would she do that for us?
Yeah. Because obviously she wouldn't. And she's rude.
We must have missed something. I'm not going to go back to it, but I guess that when Shaggy and Scooby lost the tug of war, one of the Vikings said, "You failed test. We mad now."
Yeah.
I remember exactly like how it sounded too. He was upset.
They get so angry over nothing. Like, honestly, get over it.
Go see a therapist. Like, all of these Vikings have anger management issues.
It's because they're Nazis.
So the four of them now reunited, they explore a little bit more, and they now discover a Viking ship. It's all underground. It's in this little river. And that's when the Vikings start to storm in and, follow them and attack. They all get on the ship in order to, like, try and escape. They all try to pull the oars and get the boat moving, but it's not moving, and they don't understand why. I think one of the Vikings, like, tried to grab Scrappy or something.
Something like that.
And then Scooby became, like, hella brave and tried to rescue him. He hops on, like, a rope, which I think is from the sail of the ship, and he's like flying around, and Shaggy's like, "What are you doing?" And Scooby's like, "Trying to save Scrappy, I hope." They're really like passively thinking that they're just not going to get done what they need to get done.
They're like, I think they're becoming self-aware of like, we just do things and hope for the best.
Basically. And it does end up being the best because he does save Scrappy, I think.
I know he grabs Olaf,
yes,
who's holding Scrappy. I don't know what happens to Scrappy.
I think he dropped him. I think Olaf drops Scrappy, and Olaf and Scooby end up in that, I don't know what it's called.
I think it's like a watchbird is
it's
what's
like
popping
a watch post or something.
Yeah, something.
It's up above by the sail where like they can
the people with
out.
the eyeglass and they're like, "Oh,
exactly.
land ho!"
Yeah,
that spot.
I don't know what it's called. But they're both up there, and the Viking is now freaking out because he's afraid of heights.
Literally, like, the second they land there, he goes, "Don't hurt me. I'm afraid of heights."
It's not even, like, his Viking voice anymore. It's Professor Busby's, like, wimpy, dorky voice of his.
Yeah.
Now, I think they all... And this is when the ship starts to, like, raise. And Shaggy's like, "What's going on?" And it turns out that the Viking ship is attached to the top of a submarine. The submarine that got stolen from the Navy.
Dun, dun, dun.
The lab assistant pops up from the submarine. It turns out that his name is Niels Jansen from the Navy because they're always from the FBI or undercover cops or something.
And they're never helpful.
No. But
they show up at the last minute and probably take fucking credit.
Like I said, he just left Daphne and Scrappy in the dungeon.
And we never see him again until because here's my thing. He came from the bottom, which means he was inside the submarine. So you hear all the shit going on up top.
And do nothing.
Rude. Over it. So they do talk about why he wanted to, like, get everybody out of the island, and it was so that it could be his hideout.
Okay. Niels Jansen explains to the gang that Professor Busby is better known as Busby the Pirate. So the word pirate is actually used. These pirate Vikings, they want to scare everyone off the island evidently so they can use it as their master hideout.
Yes.
The episode ends with Scooby digging up a bone. It doesn't look like any kind of bone I've ever seen in my life. I'm not an archaeologist, but I know that isn't a fucking bone.
It was a whale bone.
Why would Shaggy know that? That's a whale bone. What?
He's an archaeologist connoisseur.
But Scooby's delighted to have this whale bone now, and that's basically how the episode ends.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
So, do I even need to guess what your Scooby Snackometer rating is for this episode? Because you don't need to guess mine.
Do you want to... I'll tell you yours and you tell me mine?
Same time?
1, 2, 3.
1. I hated it. Hated this episode 100%. No doubt it is a 1.
It was one of the stupidest episodes I've ever seen.
It's one of the most offensive episodes I've ever seen.
Like, you know...
It's one of the most nonsensical episodes I've ever seen.
It is. And we thought that, like, Monster in Mexico was a little disrespectful and stupid. And, like, this one just topped the cake.
Not happy with this episode, personally. You cannot rebut this episode for me.
No.
You will not be able to redeem it in any way to me.
The only way that you could redeem it is if you took the Nazis out. Like, if you took that whole spot, like, and honestly, like, it sounds crazy because it was a 10-minute episode, and, like, it sounds crazy that literally, like, not even a 1-minute scene could ruin the entire episode. But it did. That one line I couldn't come back to the episode after that. And it wasn't a good episode to begin with.
I think I would have maybe given it a 3.
Yeah.
If it didn't have that part. But that part just really was distasteful to me, so instantly lost 2 Scooby Snacks for that.
Like, already, I wasn't loving the episode. You know, it made me chuckle with the whole, like, we want food, good food.
Those were funny.
They were funny. And, like, I was enjoying the episode, but it wasn't my favorite. So, yeah, like you said, like a 3. Maybe if it had, like, some more funny parts, maybe a 4. But that's a huge stretch. But the second that they, you know, hail Olaf, I was like, no. Like, yeah. That's so disgusting. That's so distasteful.
I do not want to revisit this episode. It can stay in the 80s where it shouldn't have even been in the first place.
Yep.
Now we're going to move on to the other half of this episode being No Sharking Zone. This premise I'm reading is also coming from Scoobypedia. The kids head to the island of Scareruba to see Prince Ruba and take pictures of the surfing festival and legendary surfer Cowabunga Carlyle. But while there, they hear of the lost treasure of Scareruba and the great white shark and seaweed monster who are protecting it.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a place called Scareruba, Shannon?
No, and the fact that the prince's name is Prince Ruba.
So lazy. Jonathan Johnson.
Yeah, like... You know, they have, like, name generators online now. You don't have to name your characters Jonathan Johnson.
My very first note for this episode, I wrote out Scareruba and then just had a stale face next to the name of the country. I like that the surfing festival is being hosted by a prince, which further makes me acknowledge that Scareruba is a monarchy.
Yeah. No, I get, like, I don't know. Because I could kind of see it happening. You know, like, the king and queen have their own stuff going on, but, like, a prince can host a festival, and, like, if he liked surfing. But what I could see with that is, like, I kind of wanted the prince to partake in it.
He seems really old, though.
Annoying.
Old. Same thing. I also noted that Daphne is actually playing up the reporter role that she's supposed to take on in this series.
Yes.
She's there reporting about the surfing contest, which kudos to her that she's like in her late teens, early 20s, and she's got a job that's sending her abroad. That's pretty cool.
And, like, I'm assuming paying for the kid, for Shaggy, because
they hired Scooby and Shaggy as their cameramen.
Yeah.
But I like that Daphne literally does nothing when it comes to reporting while she's here in Scareruba.
She was like, you guys go get me
nothing. She said hi to the prince and that's it.
She told the guys, like, go get me a good take, and that was okay, bye.
She sends Scooby and Shaggy out in a boat with the camera. They're gonna get some close-up shots of the surfers. And at one point, they're out in the water, and this wave comes to, like, flip their boat, and Scooby sticks out his paw.
And yells, stop!
And the wave stops.
So, fun fact, Scooby can control water.
He's a waterbender.
There you go. I'll take it.
Avatar is canon to Scooby-Doo now.
Yep.
And then he, like, pulled out an umbrella, and then he's just like, okay, and then lets the waters go over them anyway. Meanwhile, Daphne and Scrappy go to meet Prince Ruba. And when she introduces herself to him, he says, oh, you're Daphne Blake, the reporter. So, like you said earlier, like, she's well-known.
Yeah.
She's a well-known reporter. Even the prince of a foreign country knows who she is.
He's like, oh, you must be Daphne Blake.
Like, no wonder she's getting all these awesome jobs where she gets to, like, travel as a reporter. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Something that we see when Scooby and Shaggy get washed over with the water is that in the distance, like behind some rocks, we see a seaweed monster.
Yeah.
I don't understand how the seaweed monster was there, because not only a few minutes later we meet the person who's in the seaweed monster costume.
What do I always say, Derek? There's
always an accomplice. There's always someone working with the main villain. I guess that's true. So Cowabunga Carlyle, one of the surfing contestants, is our villain today. He is participating in the surfing contest while all of this is happening.
Now, I will say I do like the way that he is the bad guy. Like, I like, because we always say that there's an accomplice. in this case, like, he is the seaweed monster, and then the shark is...
I didn't even think about that.
And the shark is, like, mechanical. So he's dressed up as the seaweed monster inside the shark, controlling the shark. And so on a normal thing, like, as I was watching it, I was like, wow, so there really isn't an accomplice this time. Like, normally if there's two bad guys, you know, there's always an accomplice. But this time, like, there wasn't until you rewatch it the first time and you're like, oh, we see the seaweed monster.
And also, so did he...
I just blew Derek's mind.
But now I'm wondering, like, did he go back underwater and go into the shark? Or is the shark seeing, like, someone else? So, like, there's two accomplices alongside Cowabunga.
I'm thinking that whoever the seaweed monster is, because we never see them in the same spot at the same time. So I'm thinking, like, because the seaweed monster is behind rocks, I'm thinking that the shark is probably just, like, behind him sitting there. And so he, like, peeks over, sees what's going on, hops in the shark, and does the next scene. But that has to be the accomplice, because all the meanwhile, Cowabunga's doing his little surfy thing.
Yeah. We see Cowabunga. He is washed up onto the shore because Scooby and Shaggy, as the prince acknowledges, is ruining the surfing.
But how does Cowabunga end up on the shore, you ask? He crashes from a wave, jumps on a trampoline, and ends up in a pile of seaweed.
I have trampoline written huge in the corner of my sheet here. Like, what the fuck is this trampoline
because
for? We see it multiple times.
Like, it's used often, and I'm like, why do you have such bad surfers that you
It doesn't even look like a trampoline.
No, it looks like a sand pit.
Surrounded by rocks.
Yeah.
So...
not safe.
Yeah. After he's washed up, we see Scooby and Shaggy now being chased by a shark. The shark is popping out of the waves and is, you know, chasing them down, trying to eat them. And they manage to get away from the shark, and they end up bouncing on the trampoline, and they end up in the hot dog stand on the shore.
Which is heaven.
Basically, because then Scooby instantly, like, just inhales a hot dog. So after Shaggy and Scooby land in the hot dog stand, Scrappy points out that Cowabunga has these, like, black rocks on the bottom of his surfboard that spell out CC, which is his initials. And he's just like, don't worry about it, kid. I thought it was funny that he called Scrappy a kid. You're talking to a dog.
He did it so sketchily too. Like, he was just like, oh, don't worry about it. This is nothing.
Nothing to see here.
Like, you're the bad guy. If you're trying to get away with it, don't put it on your surfboard.
He might as well be Jonathan Johnson.
Yeah.
Well, I think from now on, when the villain, like, just does something so outlandishly stupid,
he's pulling a Jonathan Johnson.
He's pulling a Jonathan Johnson. That's what Cowabunga is doing right now.
And that's fair, because he was in the midst of getting all of the treasure out from the hidden cave. You could have just waited. Like, you could have had all of that treasure out in, like, 2-3 trips, and then you could have put the CC... and
do it at night.
Yeah, no one would have thought anything of it.
The prince basically has an announcement to make to everyone on the beach. He announces that the beach is closed. Scrappy really sadly says, but what about the surfing festival? And that's when Cowabunga just kind of busts in, and he's just like, surfing? Ugh! Like, he's all butthurt.
Did you see how big that shark was?
Why are you being so mean? Like, just a moment ago you called him a kid. You're yelling at a kid.
I think he's, like, so mean because he is the bad guy, and, like...
Everyone that is a bad guy in this show is just irrationally mean.
Yes. But also I was thinking, because, like, he is thinking, if I show up as a shark, nobody will surf here and I can finish my job. But then when Scrappy's like, but what about the surfing contest? He's like, shut the fuck up.
Like, don't bring it back.
Yeah.
I guess so. That kind of makes sense, but he's still kind of an ass anyway.
Oh, I know. With a name like Cowabunga, you're going to be an asshole. I guess
that's true. You're going to be a douchebag.
Yeah.
This is when the prince explains that he thinks that what's going on with the shark is connected to the curse of Scareruba. It's basically a curse where there's a treasure that's in the ocean or something, and it's guarded by the great white shark and a seaweed monster. I think this episode could have benefited if it just stuck to one of them.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to become a common trend with these things where, like, two really distinct monsters become really, I don't want to say bloated, but a lot more congested of a story than it needs to be. Like, if it was a seaweed monster or if it was a shark, like one or the other, it would have been okay. It's kind of like a Tiki Scare is No Fair, where they would have been okay with the witch doctor or they would have been okay with Mono Tiki Tia's statue.
Yeah.
But not both.
Well, because, like, you can't really get invested in a monster if there's two running around. You know, like, I can't be worried about both of them.
Well, we also see the shark a lot more than we see the seaweed monster.
Yeah.
Which makes me really think that it's not necessary. You know?
Well, and my thing is, like, the seaweed monster looks scarier, and I would have been more okay with a seaweed monster than a shark.
Yeah, like, I don't have a favorite between the two, but I think that just because we see the shark more often, just nix the seaweed monster. Mm-hmm. Now, I get why he has the seaweed monster costume. It's because he doesn't want to be detected when he's, you know, putting the treasure in or pulling it out from the sea.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like they could have worked around that somehow. Like, maybe instead of him coming up at the beach, maybe he has like a secret hideout elsewhere on Scareruba that he pilots the submarine to.
Something
like that, you know? But I don't know. Just my opinion. I don't think they need both. The idea of the curse scares Scooby and Shaggy. They want to leave. Daphne's like, no way, because always. And now they end up in a boat. They all have scuba gear that they're going to, you know, use to deep sea dive and try and investigate. The water is really choppy.
It is. I would never scuba dive in that water. It's so...
I would never go out in a boat in that kind of water, personally.
No, it's so choppy and, like, the water is moving so fast. It's so dangerous. I would never. I could only imagine, like, what the tide and the current feel like.
Yeah.
While they're out in the boat, it cuts back to the beach where we have the prince, Cowabunga, and some random girl we've never met before and we never see again.
We don't know her name.
They're all standing on the beach, and Cowabunga goes, "What are those kids doing out there?" And somehow
you know what? The prince says, "What are they doing out there?" And then Cowabunga says, "If you ask me, they're looking for trouble."
And then the prince is like, "And they're gonna get it."
Yeah.
And so my thought, here's my conspiracy. You know, I always have one. The prince is definitely in on it. Just that whole conversation right there was so, like, they're so in tune with each other. It's a conversation that I could see, like, you and I having. Like,
two people who are in cahoots with each other.
Like, they know what the other is thinking. Like, they have it. And so the prince is 100% in on it. And that random girl that we've never seen before and we never see again is Cowabunga's accomplice.
So she's the one that's in the costumes while Cowabunga is surfing.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we never see her.
That's the only explanation I will follow, because aside from that, she doesn't even talk.
No.
She doesn't say anything. They put in a lot of effort just putting in this other random character that's just standing there, contributing nothing to the scene.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the seatbelt Mystery Machine payoff.
What can we afford?
Right. But they had the money to splurge on a random non-talking woman.
Yep.
They can't afford to give her a voice.
They couldn't afford a voice actor, but they could afford the picture.
Yes, so they just threw it in there anyway. While they're in the boat, the gang are, you know, debating going in because Scooby and Shaggy really don't want to go. And Daphne offers them a Scooby snack. I like that in this scene, we actually see Scooby and Shaggy, like, confer with each other. Like, they debate, like, "Oh, come on, Scooby, like, it's a Scooby snack. You're going to get a Scooby snack out of it." And Scooby's like, "No way," and da-da-da.
And I love that you can hear them.
Yeah, they actually, like, are saying words. It's not just, like, the hush-hush whisper. Exactly. And they come to the conclusion that if Daphne throws in a box of Scooby snacks, they're in for it.
And that's the exact wording they use.
Yes.
"Daphne, if you throw the whole box in, we'll go." And she, being a bitch, throws the whole box in the water.
She's like, "If you say so."
If you say so, and throws it in the water. And Shaggy's reaction is, "Not in the water! Hurry, go get it!"
So they just immediately dive in after it. It's becoming a lot more evident why people and Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy don't like Daphne.
Yes, she's rude.
Like, if Fred were there, I don't think Fred would have done that.
In the creepy heap from the deep, doesn't Fred throw it out the thing for when they go on the torpedo or something? Doesn't he throw it out at one point?
I thought that was Daphne that did that.
Oh, was it?
I'm going to fact check
So she's
this.
just rude.
I'm going to fact check that. We have notes. That's why we have notebooks.
Yes.
Scary as fuck dead body. Daphne tosses the snacks out the window.
So she's like a cereal tosser.
It's not necessary. Uncalled for, Daphne. So now they're all underwater. And Scooby and Shaggy, they separate from Daphne and Scrappy because I think...
They were going to like check different parts of the water.
Yeah. Scooby and Shaggy run into the shark. And Shaggy jokes that, this definitely isn't a rock because he's like knocking on the shark's face, not really realizing what it is yet. And he's like, this doesn't sound like a rock. It sounds more like metal, which I think is kind of nice because the shark is a submarine.
Yeah.
But the shark does chase them. He chases them into this like cavern where they go and hide. The shark can't fit. Was it the shark couldn't fit, or did he just lose them?
I think he lost them. Now that we know that it's not like a real shark, it's a submarine, there's a person inside of it, why would you chase them anywhere near the direction of your secret hidden treasure?
That's true. Like when you try and get them further away.
Yeah. Now, Daphne...
Or back up to the surface.
Yeah, because Daphne and Scrappy were already in the cavern.
Yes.
So... ultimately, like, it wouldn't have mattered. Part of the gang had already found it.
But logic-wise, like, what are you doing?
Why would you not... Or, like, why would you go after the part of the gang that's not going towards your treasure?
Yeah.
Like, Daphne and Scrappy swim towards the treasure. Scooby and Shaggy are talking about going back to the boat and just pretending that they searched for it. Like, why wouldn't you just let them do their thing and then go...
Or if they were getting too close to the cave, that's when you actually interfere and scare them. Now Scooby and Shaggy are in the cave. They swim onto the little surface of the, underwater cave, and that's when they find Daphne and Scrappy, who have already discovered the cursed treasure of Scareruba. They're looking around, and this is when Daphne and Scrappy discover the black pearls.
Yeah.
Scrappy's like, have you ever seen anything like this? And Daphne's like, not until this morning, because... they saw that's what was on the bottom of Cowabunga's surfboard.
Which my thing is, I kind of wish that those lines had been reversed because Scrappy was the one that
actually pointed them out.
Yeah, that was like, oh, these are such nice pearls. So I kind of wanted Daphne to hold it up and be like, wait, haven't we seen these before? Yeah, we just saw them this morning. Like,
exactly, because that was something that Scrappy observed.
Yeah, that's when he got called a kid.
Yeah. So while they're looking at this, Scooby and Shaggy kind of wander, and that's when they encounter the seaweed monster, and it scares them, and they all panic, and they go to dive back into the water and go back up to the surface to the boat, and the shark is sitting in the water. But it's not moving or anything, and they panic for a second.
Open.
Yeah, the mouth is open. They panic for a second, but then they realize that it's not doing anything. So they discover that it's a submarine. They end up diving in the water anyway, and racing back up to the surface, while the seaweed monster hops in the submarine shark and chases them. At some point, the shark ended up crashed on the beach. I don't really know what caused that.
Okay, so all I know is that, like, they were all in the boat except for Scooby, which why was Scooby not in the boat? And he was hanging onto the anchor?
You know what? He was on the anchor of the boat, and then the shark bit it.
Yeah.
And somehow Scooby wound up on top of the shark.
Yeah.
And he's, like, calling for help, and they're all
doing
whatever. These are the points where I'm not taking notes, because
it's whatever.
Yeah. Ultimately, the shark submarine ends up crashed on the beach. And when the gang get to the beach, Daphne opens this little hatch that she finds on the side of it, and the seaweed monster spills out of it, and she immediately picks him up, shoves him up, and tears off the mask. And
I really feel like
this is Cowabunga.
I really feel like that was like Mama Bear power. Like, she was like,
I'm having none of this.
Yeah. She lifted him and ripped off his head and was just like,
Velma would have been proud of that ripping off the mask part.
She ripped his face off.
Yeah. In a way, this kind of continues the mask within a mask trend we're seeing.
Yeah.
Kind of. It kind of transitions, and now Prince Ruba and everybody's there, and Daphne's like, well, that's how it happened, Prince Ruba. And then they explain the plot again.
Yeah, it was weird.
They explain it to the audience, but evidently they already told this to Prince Ruba, so they're just telling the story twice.
Just to let you guys know, here's what happened. We haven't been here the whole time.
Right. So ultimately, Cowabunga was diving in the shark to get this treasure out from the cavern, and then was using the shark and the seaweed monster to scare everyone away because he knew that they would believe in the curse.
Yeah.
Smart. That's a smart choice for your costume. He used the black pearls to decorate his surfboard. Something that I noticed in our like fourth watching of this episode, I didn't write it down, so I should have mentioned it at the beginning of the episode, is that everyone's surfboards are yellow.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
You know what I think that is? That's the opportunity cost of drawing in the woman.
The woman.
The accomplice woman.
We either had the option of different colored surfboards or the accomplice woman.
And all yellow surfboards.
I was thinking maybe they were like competition boards, but like that's not a thing. Like that doesn't happen in real surf competitions.
And even if that was the case, when would Cowabunga have had the opportunity to put the black pearls on his?
Exactly. Like that's it. Everybody just has yellow surfboards. They're in this season.
My last note is that Scooby makes the sub his new home.
I know, he crawled in there for what reason?
I think he scared Shaggy.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why I wrote it that way.
I don't know.
So that was no sharking zone. Shannon, what did you give this episode on the Scooby Snack-O-Meter?
I actually gave it a 3.
Okay, why?
I don't know. I honestly think...
Full disclosure, guys, we are recording this a few days later than us taking the notes, so our logic writing these things down may have been a little different than they are now.
I honestly think that I hated Scooby the Barbarian so much that by the time we got to No Sharking Zone, I was like, I will give this whatever.
It just kind of spilled over.
Yeah.
I can kind of agree with that, because I think that my opinion on this episode also is just kind of spoiled because it's paired with such a fucking terrible episode. I gave this episode a 2.
Okay.
I think that there's a mystery there. It works. I don't think it's a really strong one.
No.
Because it's immediately obvious how, like, sketchy Cowabunga is. And I'm sorry, I never suspected the prince. This old man.
No, and...
Why would he be interested in the treasure? He's royalty on this island.
Exactly.
He has no motive to want the treasure. There was only one suspect in my mind.
Oh, yeah. It was
as soon as we met Cowabunga, I just knew.
Yeah, that was my note for him, was Cowabunga is the bad guy. And then when we saw the seaweed monster, I was like, okay, but wait. So how... I know he's the bad guy, but how did it happen?
I guess that plot hole of there being the shark and the seaweed monster while we're also seeing Cowabunga surfing also brings it down for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just didn't really enjoy the episode overall, so I'm giving it a 2 myself. And so with our scores for Scooby the Barbarian and No Sharking Zone, we officially give this pair a 1.5 on the Scooby Snack-O-Meter.
Wah, wah, wah.
I'm fine with that.
Not sorry.
Really, I am okay with that. So you want to hear the fun fact of this week?
Sure.
So these 2 episodes are the very first episodes of this series.
Oh, that's really disappointing.
Yeah, right? Doesn't that set quite the precedent? Especially being Scooby the Barbarian as the first one.
Yeah.
But because of all of those years where Fred, Daphne, and Velma have been gone, this is the first time that we're seeing Daphne back in the show in years.
Yeah.
So a lot of kids in the 80s when they first watched this, there's a chance that they had never met Daphne before.
Yeah, so
which means like in their minds, Daphne's just this all-around new character.
And like this is not a great introduction for her.
I agree. So next week we are going to be moving on to the next series, which is The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo.
We do watch this series in order because it does have a plot.
So instead of randomizing, we are going to announce that our next episode is going to be Scooby-Doo. Yay!
I don't know. I've never seen this, so I am genuinely excited for this series. We did like the first episode, so I do have hope. So I'm hoping.
Yeah. So the premise for Scooby-Doo comes from Scoobypedia. The gang heads to the evil forest to capture Maldor, but their plan is botched and Daphne is put under a sleeping beauty spell.
I'm really excited.
Interesting.
I wonder who's going to kiss her.
You think someone is?
It's a sleeping beauty spell.
That doesn't necessarily mean it gets broken by a kiss.
That's true. Okay.
Look at you thinking you know shit about witches and spells.
I like Disney.
So that's going to be the episode we're going to be visiting next week. If you guys want to talk to us about the episodes we talked about today or the episode we're talking about next week, or really anything Scooby-Doo for that matter, you can contact us on Twitter or our email. Our Twitter handle is @Groovy Scoobcast, and our email is thatgroovyscoopcast@gmail.com.
You can also check out our website, www.thatgroovyscoopcast.com.
There you can see all of our episodes that we've been posting, as well as our various ratings that we've rewarded past episodes, and even some of the stuff that we have available for you guys, like our pins, which we love. Oh my god. And also those stickers that we give out if you review us on iTunes or Stitcher and email us about it.
I will say the pins are very cool, so I'm really excited about those. And the stickers we both have on our laptops, and we just love giving that out.
And with that, we hope that you enjoyed That Groovy Scoobcast.
Come back next week for Scooby Snack Filled Time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.